Welcome to DIYEasyCrafts.com. How to easily create scalloped or thatched blade texture using an angle grinder. Now in this video, I'm not going to do an entire build of a knife. I'm really just going to show you how to create these lines or this texture on the blade. It's very, very simple. This is not rocket science. But I had a couple of viewers ask me how it was done or how I had done it on these knives, so I put together a short video. Now the blades that I'm working with start out as water jet cut blanks. These are available on DIYEasyCrafts.com. They're all 1095 high carbon steel, 3/16 thick. It's a real nice starting place, for a lot of creative projects. And all I did to start was put, a basic bevel on the blade. I didn't grind it all the way. I'm going to do the rest of the bevel after heat treating. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an angle grinder. This has a flap sanding wheel. I'm using a coarse grit, about a 36 grit flap sanding wheel. And using the edge of that, I'm just using that angle grinder to create grooves or texture marks on the surface of the blade. And I'm going to show you this in real time. This is a drop point knife that I'm working on now. I think the entire process of adding these scalloped or thatched lines onto the blade took about 4 minutes. You can plunge these marks in as deep as you like. I'm keeping this first go around with the flap sanding wheel kind of on the shallow side, not making them super deep, because I'm going to come back in and create some thinner lines on top of these. And just another view doing the back side. All of these markings are done prior to heat treating. I'm going to send the knife out to my friend Jason. He's going to heat treat the blades, and that will create real dark areas inside each one of those grooves. Give us some nice contrast on the blade surface. And all I'm doing is I'm just changing the direction of the angle grinder in between grind lines. But you can do these any way you want. You can have all the lines going in the same direction, all in a pattern, or just random. So that's the first go around. Basically just went back. This time I'm just going to use a cutoff wheel in the angle grinder, and I'm going to make some thinner lines. These will go a little bit deeper, and you'll see as soon as you start to grind, it's just a different look on top of the broader grooves cut with that flap sanding wheel. And you should certainly try this on a piece of scrap metal before you try it on one of the knives you're working on. I really did this just playing around in the garage or in the shop one night. But I was very happy with the way both of these blades came out. I did not only this drop point, but I also did a cleaver with the same type of markings. And coming up, I think we're on about 4 minutes and 30 seconds into the texturing, and basically it's done. After heat treating, I will go back and finish grinding the bevels, and that'll create some nice contrast between the dark blade area and the bevel area. My friend Jason heat treats the blades just using torches. He heats them up until they're cherry red, non-magnetic, and then cools them off quickly in oil. After the heat treating is done, I put all the blades into the oven, 375 for 3 hours, and let them cool overnight as a tempering process. Now, I said I wasn't going to cover the entire build of this knife, but I am going to show you something new that I did, or new for me anyway, with the brass bolsters. I recently did an entire little video on how I made brass bolsters, and one of my viewers suggested that I really should peen the pins to hold the bolsters in place. So I decided to do that. It was a really good idea. I'm just using these are 1/8 diameter holes, and I just counterbore them very, very slightly with a counterbore, just to create a little bit of a space on both surfaces of the brass bolsters. That's going to create room for me to peen those 1/8 diameter pins into. I'm going to apply the bolsters exactly the same way as I usually do, with 2 brass pins as well as 2-part epoxy. I'll clamp that all together. I'll let it sit overnight, completely cure. Let the epoxy completely cure. Clamp those tight. Put them in a vise. And once it's done, I trimmed off the pins so that just a little bit sticks out on either side. And then I'm just going to use a small hammer, the flat surface of a hammer, and I'm just going to beat down each one of those pins. That brass is very soft and malleable, so it really fills in the void from that counter drill. And what I was really concerned about is, my bolsters with the brass pins, like I normally do it, when you polish these all down, really you don't even see the pins. It all kind of merges into one. So I'm going to do that here. I'm just going to see how well it worked. I'm just using an angle grinder to grind down the pins until they're level with the surface of the bolsters. And then I'm just going to give it a real quick sanding. I think this is with a 400 grit paper. And I was very pleased with the way it came out. I can't even see the pins through the brass, and I am definitely going to change the way I do the bolsters. I think from now on I'll also peen the pins, make them a little bit stronger. The handles or the scales for these blades I did out of walnut. I've gone through this process on several videos. I'm not going to show the entire process of creating the scales. On this particular group of knives, I had lent my son my table saw, so these hunks of walnut are a little thicker than I would like them to be. It just really just means a little bit extra grinding afterwards. But basically, I attached them with 1/4-inch brass pins, 2-part epoxy, clamped them together overnight. When they were completely cured, then I used a combination of angle grinder, the 2x72 belt sander, and a Dremel grinder in order to bring the scales into the size and the shape desired. And these are just some pictures of the process of bringing those scales into the size and shape. Rough cut, and this is almost finished. That's basically finished except for some polishing. And then the final process is going to be polishing on the buffing wheel, polishing not only the bolsters, but also the brass pins, the surfaces of the brass pins, and then adding some oil to the walnut. Now the finished blades is what I was most interested in. So you got those real dark carbonized areas in each one of the grooves. For lack of a better name, I'm going to call this a thatched design. You could also call it a scalloped design, I guess. All created very quickly, very easily with an angle grinder. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I ask that you please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Please check us out on the internet at www.diyeasycrafts.com and be sure to check out our other knife making videos. Thank you.